Welcome to the Carnivore Cast, the podcast focused on the carnivore diet and lifestyle, with practical advice from successful carnivores, citizen scientists, and top researchers. I'm your host, Scott Meslinski, and I'm here to speak with experts and experienced carnivores to get answers to your biggest and meatiest questions while helping you live your best life as a carnivore. If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting the Carnivore Cast on Patreon. By becoming a patron, you'll help us reach more people and continue to create content on carnivore. There are also exclusive perks available, such as private Q&As, consultations with me, and more. Become a supporter at patreon.com/carnivorecast. Check the episode description for the link. Thank you, and I'll see you there. Dr. Danenberg goes by Dr. Al. He is a periodontist and was in private practice for 44 years. He incorporated ancestral nutrition and lifestyle with his leading-edge laser protocol to treat periodontal disease. Dr. Al consults with patients all over the world regarding animal-based nutrition, lifestyle, oral and overall health, and the importance of a healthy gut and immune system. He also includes his unconventional cancer protocols since he was diagnosed with incurable bone marrow cancer in September 2018 and was given only 3 to 6 months to live. Wow. Dr. Al rejected all chemotherapy and is thriving today. His certifications include CFMP, which is Certified Functional Medicine Practitioner. He's also faculty at the College of Integrative Medicine. He's ADAPT certified from the Kresser Institute, and he's on the advisory board of NutriSense. Dr. Al is also the author of Crazy Good Living, which is based on ancestral nutrition and lifestyle. Welcome to the show, Al. Very excited to have you here today.
Well, thank you so much. Great opportunity. I love it. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's start with your background. How did you become a periodontist, and where did ancestral nutrition and lifestyle come into the picture after that?
So this is a very long story, Scott, if you've got time.
I have all the time in the world for you.
Okay. So first of all, I am 73 years old today, or not today, but at this time I'm 73. Be 74 in a couple months. So going into periodontics, which is a specialty of dentistry, goes way back. So I liked the idea when I was in college, way before you were born, thinking about healthcare professions. And for whatever reason, dentistry came to mind and it impressed me. And I met quite a number of dentists, and I went to dental school eventually. Loved dentistry, but really loved periodontics, which is the treatment or specialty of gum disease. Specialized in that, and I got my DDS and certification in periodontics, I think around 1972. Long time ago. So I started practicing in 1972 in Charleston, South Carolina, where I live, and I remained there. And have been in practice quite a number of years in different type of practice environments. But when I was 59 years old, which meant that I had been practicing quite a number of years already, I had a stroke, of all things. Now, I'm thinking I was a healthy guy, but I had no idea about health at this point. But I had a stroke. My conventional medical doctors saved my life, put me on 7 medications for the rest of my life, and said, eat a healthy diet and live a healthy lifestyle. They had no idea what was going on. And I was not comfortable with the idea of being on medicine for the rest of my life. So I did some research, and, when you think about what is a healthy diet, you would go to the American Heart Association, the American Cancer Society, the American Diabetes Association, looking at these major organizations that obviously knew everything about life, healthy life and diet. Of course, that's not true, but I tried to follow what they were doing. Now, I was on 7 medications at the age of 59. Still practicing periodontics. In 2 or 3 months, I was fine, and I got back to my practice. And I weighed about 187 pounds. I'm only 5'7", so that's a little chunky. Fast forward to when I was age 66. Now, I'm still trying to eat healthy according to standard protocols from these organizations. Never got off my medications, and my weight kind of varied from 180 to 185. Didn't do very much. I found a course at all places, the Kripalu Center for Yoga and Health. It was an intensive course for healthcare professionals about nutrition. It was a 5-day course. And I thought if I got this course, I would really understand everything I was doing and would just confirm everything I was doing because I thought I was doing the right thing. So I took this course and it blew me away. There were maybe 6 or 7 instructors, and the emphasis was on something I never heard about before, and that was primal lifestyle and diet. They were talking about paleo. Didn't even know what that word meant, but I started to learn about it. By the end of 5 days, it made such sense to me. And I realized that everything I was doing was wrong. Just blew me away. Called my wife and I said, I got some new information when I come home. And so she and I batted heads for a little while. And she said, I'll give you 30 days. So I cleared out all the stuff that was not paleo from my refrigerator and freezer and wherever I had fat food. We had such a number of packaged foods, and we put it in bags. We had 7 bags of groceries that we took to the food bank, and we had no food in the house. So I started to buy things that were organic and related to vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, everything that was appropriate for paleo, but certainly eliminated all the grains and legumes and vegetable seed oils and those types of things. So I started to see it. And of course, I incorporated exercise and lifestyle changes too. Within 2 years, from the age of 66 to 68, I lost a little more than 32 pounds without even trying to lose weight. You know, when you eat healthy, hormones balance. And I got off all 7 medications completely. Wow, what a life changer. So that concept made so much sense to me, and I understood the healing properties. And here I am, a periodontist, conventionally trained, doing very sophisticated laser surgery to treat very, very involved periodontal disease. I incorporated the concepts now into my periodontal therapy. And the patients that accepted this nutritional change, which were very few, you know, most conventional people just don't want to hear about it, but the few that accepted it had much, much healthier results, not only with their mouth, but overall wellness. And I realized this is the way to go. So I started writing about it, lecturing about it. I was doing consultations all over the world and still doing my clinical periodontal work in a private office. So let's fast forward to when I am 71 years old, 2018. I am lecturing different places, and I thought I was the senior poster boy for a healthy lifestyle. I was really feeling good. So in April of 2018, am I going too long now?
Not at all. No, this is excellent. This is exactly where I wanted to go.
So April of 2018, I'm asked to speak at Paleo FX in Austin, Texas. I live in Charleston, South Carolina. I have to fly, and there's no direct flights from Charleston anywhere in the world except Atlanta. So for the most part. So I go to Atlanta, switch planes, and I normally carry a bag on my right shoulder, walking from concourse to concourse, because I like to do that if I have enough time between flights. And when I was doing that, the bag on my right shoulder started to ache my shoulder. It was like almost I pulled a muscle or a ligament or something. Got to Austin, did my talk, went back to Charleston, and the pain never really went away completely. It started to go to my back, then eventually it went to my chest area. And I'm a little pig-headed, and I don't like to make fast decisions, but eventually I had to call my physician in August of 2018 and say, you know, I've got some problems. I think I tore a rotator cuff or something. So he has me come into the office. He looks at me, and of course he says, yeah, something's going on. And I said, duh, that's why I'm here. So he orders a bunch of typical blood tests, a CBC, blood chemistries, but he also orders a C-reactive protein, which identifies maybe systemic inflammation. Generally, when I've had a C-reactive protein in the past, it was always less than 0.5, relatively very healthy. And all my chemistries and blood work that he ordered came back literally normal. But my CRP was way off. It was over 5.5, very, very high. Something was inflamed in my body. We didn't know where it was. We didn't know if it was acute or chronic, but it was not right. So he orders an MRI, and I get the MRI, and he calls me that night, and he starts to joke around a little bit. He said, "Did somebody beat you up? Did you fall down some steps?" And I said, "Bobby, come on. I didn't do anything. I just carried a bag, and I think my shoulder muscle or ligament is torn." He gets very serious, and then he says, "The MRI, I see a vertebral compression fracture, several broken ribs, and a hairline crack in your pelvis."
Wow.
And then he said, "Yeah." And then I'm getting a little nervous, right? Then he says, "I think you have leukemia, lymphoma, or multiple myeloma." Now, wow, because these are 3 cancers. Here I am, the healthiest guy in town, I think, 71 years old, traveling all over, telling everybody how healthy I am and how healthy I have gotten, and I have cancer? Wow. So he calls in an oncologist who I have not seen before. The oncologist sets up an appointment with me and my wife, my 2 adult kids. But between then, that met my physician's appointment and the oncology appointment, I have a bunch of other tests. So they have, they see a mass on the side of my spine. They do a biopsy. They do a very sophisticated X-ray called a PET scan, where they inject you with radioactive glucose. So if there's any cancer, the cancer sucks up the glucose and it glows on the X-ray picture, and a bunch of other specific blood tests for cancers. So I'm coming into his office, and this is in September 2019. And George, the oncologist, talks to me and my wife and my adult kids, and he says, "You have IgA kappa light chain multiple myeloma with innumerable lytic lesions throughout your spine and vertebral column and major bone structures, your entire skeleton." Means that my bones are very fragile, almost like I have severe osteoporosis everywhere. And that's why I've had pathological fractures, and that's why I had all these cracks. And then he says, "This is incurable." And then he says, "I have 3 to 6 months to live." So he says, "Here's what you need to do. We are going to start you on chemotherapy tomorrow, and you're not a good candidate for stem cell therapy, but you need some radiation because of the pain in your chest." Actually, I could not really breathe because of the fractures in the ribs. So the radiation would not treat the disease or the cancer. It would just remove the pain. And the pain was significant. So I did do the radiation, but he's telling me, of course, that my cancer is incurable. So I'm asking him, "So why do you want me to be on chemotherapy if this cancer is incurable?" And he says, "Well, the cancer can go into remission. So the chemotherapy will put you in remission. You'll be in remission for a while, but the cancer is going to come back. When it comes back, we'll put you on different chemotherapy, but it would be more caustic because the previous chemotherapy would not work any longer." And I said, "Well, what's going to happen with the quality of my life?" And he says, "Well, when you're in remission, you're going to do fine. But as you go into remission, then out of remission and into remission, the quality of your life is going to decrease." I said the obvious, which is very geeky of me, and I'm asking him, "So what happens when chemotherapy doesn't work any longer?" And he said, "People that die from multiple myeloma die from the complications of multiple myeloma, and they are either an infection that we can't get under control because your immune system is so screwed up and we can't fix it, kidney disease and kidney failure, or bleeding internally because you become so anemic, you're just going to bleed to death." Wow. So wait a minute. Here I am sitting in an office with my wife and adult kids, being told that my life is literally over, or at least totally different from what I've experienced for the first 71 years of my life. And there's no cure, and I'm going to take medicine that's going to destroy my immune system, and I'm only going to get worse. That didn't make sense to me. So I said, George, I can't, in all consciousness, put chemicals in my body that will not help me, and it will only decrease the quality of my life. So I'm rejecting all chemotherapy. I'll do the radiation because I'm a wuss, and I don't like the pain, and I can't breathe, so I will do that. And I needed to investigate other unconventional cancer therapies to see what I could do. And that's what I did. And I created a series of unconventional cancer protocols that made sense to me from a bunch of research from all kinds of places. And between then, September 2018 until August 2019, I did unbelievably well. Now, I didn't go into remission. I didn't get any worse, but I didn't get any better. Still had cancer. But my oncologist was very impressed. And although he's a conventional oncologist, and I still see him today, he said, I'm very interested in what you're trying to do. And he always encourages me to bring him the different medical articles that I'm using to create my unconventional cancer protocols. So let's go to August now of 2019. I'm standing in my bathroom, brushing and flossing my teeth. My feet are planted on the ground. Obviously, I know how to clean my mouth. And so I also know that I have very fragile bones. I've had several pathological fractures from my diagnosis up until that point, but nothing serious. So I'm going to throw the dental floss away, and the trash can is to my left. So I twist maybe 90 degrees to my left to throw the dental floss away, and my right femur snaps in half. I crash to the floor, break 2 more ribs when I'm crashing to the floor, and I also split my right humerus in half. So the right side of my body is pretty badly damaged. I am writhing in pain, obviously, screaming for my wife. I can't move. And I know that I've outlived my prognosis of 3 to 6 months by at least 6 months. And from this point on, I'm thinking there cannot be any quality of life because this has happened to me. And I know that is terrible because I'm looking at my arm and my leg, and they're in positions that you can't imagine because they're broken in half. So my wife comes in, obviously a lot of emotion involved, and she calls the emergency services, EMS, and they come. And the gurney is a big gurney, and we have narrow hallways to get into our bathroom, and it's not easy. It's not even possible for them to negotiate a gurney, so they have to maneuver me and get me on a gurney and eventually get me to the hospital. So when we get to the hospital, I am telling everybody, I want to die, and I'm really ready to die. And so they fix my right femur because if they don't, I'm going to bleed to death because of the artery is going to burst. So they fix my right femur. They don't fix my arm. Basically, I'm rejecting anything else that they want to do, and they send me to a hospice hospital. So I'm catheterized. I am highly drugged on narcotics. I am miserable. And I'm ready to die. So I go to this hospice hospital. This is the first week of 2019. A hurricane, of all things, is coming through Charleston that first week of September. It's called Hurricane Durian. It's moving at 1 mile an hour, but it has 187 mile an hour winds. And it's supposed to have a direct hit at the hospice hospital. So the hospital is ordered to evacuate every patient that they have. They don't know where to send me. My wife is a nurse. She arranges to get a hospital bed at my home. They send me to my home, and I'm still in hospice with a nurse. And I'm still ready to die. Catheterized, drugged, everything. Hurricane comes through, no power for 12 hours. Terrible situation. Power comes back. And then my wife kind of gives me a psychological shake with some really tough love. And she says, look, you are not a victim. You're a survivor. You did phenomenally well with your cancer protocols to start with. You had these fractures. Listen, let's get a physical therapist in here, go back on your cancer protocols, and let's get you healed. So I agree. She gets a physical therapist in, and he starts to work with me. And I start to sit up in bed and eventually get out of bed, eventually get the catheter out, start walking with a walker. And I'm doing amazingly well. I'm starting to rally. So the following month, October of 2019, I go back to my oncologist, who is amazed that I'm still alive. And he talks to me and he says, look, there's some new immunotherapy that just was released by the FDA. Will help your immune system with these malignant plasma cells, which is the malignant cells of multiple myeloma. And I'll incorporate those with my other unconventional cancer protocols and see how things go. So fast forward from October 2019 to May of 2020, and my oncologist suggests a new PET scan just to see where the cancer cells are. So I had one originally in September 2018 and one in June of 2019, all kinds of cancer cells in my entire body. But now, May 8th, 2020, I get a new PET scan. He calls me that evening and he says, make sure your wife is on speakerphone. And he reads the radiology report, which says no cancer cells visible in any area of your body. Now, I said to George, wait. Read that again, because you have to understand that I may not interpret what he says correctly. So I want to make sure what he's telling me is the right thing, because my wife is screaming and yelling and I'm kind of floating off the ground. How is it possible? And he's rather amazed that there's no active cancer cells in the entire part of my body. Now, unfortunately, or fortunately, the PET scan isn't everything and only can read medium to very heavy areas of concentration of cancer cells. I'm not in remission. I am not cured. I still have cancer. I've never gotten better. I've never gotten worse, but I feel amazing. And that's where I am today.
That's incredible, Dr. Al. Wow. That is such a story. Thank you for sharing that. I'm amazed by your problem-solving ability and your ability to maintain that through such challenges. I can totally relate to how you feel. I obviously haven't felt this way, and I can't say, I know how you feel, but I can relate to the way you felt when you said, I wanted to give up. I was ready to die, especially after all that sickness and hardship. And I think everyone listening has experienced something like that or something like that with a loved one. And there is that point where you feel at the end of your rope, but it's amazing that, you persevered and you had your wife's support to encourage you to persevere, through all of that. That's really astounding. And I wanted to ask, you don't have to give anything away or go into grave detail, but
no, I give everything away. Don't worry about it. Look, where I am in my life.
What is your protocol like, and why do you think it worked? And maybe what are some of the other protocols you've used with your patients? A lot of people ask me about how to make liver more tasteful and how to cook it or incorporate other organ meats on carnivore. Optimal Carnivore can help you do just that with their grass-fed organ complex. It was created by carnivores for carnivores. They start by sourcing 100% grass-fed organ meats from New Zealand, gently freeze-drying the organs and encapsulating them into convenient bovine gelatin capsules. Just 6 of these capsules a day is the same as eating an ounce of raw organ meat. I personally take these every single day, as does my wife. Even though we both eat liver and other organ meats, our ancestors would have eaten the whole animal. And this unique blend has 9 different organs, including beef liver, brain, thymus, kidney, spleen, etc. And I think it's great to get a daily dose of these organs when you can. So it covers all your bases, whether you're at home or traveling. What's also cool is they plant a tree for every product sold, which helps the environment. So visit www.optimalcarnivore.com/carnivorecast and use the code carnivore10 to receive 10% off your purchase. Thanks, and back to the show.
Yes. Well, I will tell you that I do not have a cure for cancer. But I will also tell, and some of the people that think they have a cure for cancer, let me tell you, they don't have a cure for cancer, especially the ones that have been treated surgically and don't tell you that they've had surgery to treat their cancer. But I will tell you this, that the most important thing for anybody and everybody out there is to have a robust immune system. With everything going on with COVID and whatever, and any other infection, virus, whatever can happen to you, everything is related to the robustness of your immune system, or else you'll get sick. And if it's very compromised, you're going to die. So everything I do supports a very robust immune system, but that gets very, very deep because you just don't take a pill. You know, right now, the concept of a immune system, a robust immune system, is such a hot phrase that every company and several thousand that have never been there before COVID that are all of a sudden on the market now have a pill that it's going to make your immune system strong. It doesn't work that way. And I know you know that, but it doesn't work that way. But most people want a pill to get healthy. So what I've done is when I went to the Kripalu Center for Yoga and Health, and I learned eating, I ate a paleo diet, which I'm sure your viewers understand. But when I was diagnosed with cancer in September 2018, I thought I needed to refine that. And actually, I moved from a paleo diet to a paleo autoimmune diet, meaning that I just got rid of the nightshades and a few other things. But for the most part, I was still paleo, but removed all the nightshades. Now, I did some more research and learned about the carnivore diet. And I learned about the carnivore diet from a variety of places and a variety of people. Paul Saladino is had a huge effect on my research. And his book, The Carnivore Code, is just a treasure trove of medical research. And I found a clinic in Budapest, Hungary called the Paleo Medicina Clinic. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
So the Paleo Medicina Clinic, I had no idea this existed, but 10 years ago they started. They've now treated over 5,000 patients. They only treat, or the majority of patients, far majority of patients that they treat are severe type of chronic disease, including cancers. And those cancers are not just curable cancers, they're incurable cancers by the definition of certainly allopathic medicine. And so they are treating their patients with a diet they call the Paleolithic ketogenic diet, which is a very strict animal-based diet that is very high fat. So it's a fat to protein ratio of 2-to-1 measured in grams. They do not put their patients on any supplements. They don't put their patients on any pharmaceutical drugs, and they're getting compelling results that they publish. And so I started reading that, and I'm thinking, wow, this is the next step beyond paleo autoimmune. And the more I researched the carnivore concept of the diet and what it did metabolically to our health, blew me away. So January 1st, 2020, I started a very strict carnivore diet, and that's what I'm on now. And it is amazing. It is my major protocol of all the ones that I have. But it's not the only one. The other protocols that are very, very critical and probably as important, number 2 would be to improve, enhance, and just heal my gut. I need to make sure that I have a robust microbiome in my gut, and not just healed from dysbiosis and healed as a leaky gut. I not only want that, I need a significant diversity of microbes in my gut. And there is a test that's called alpha diversity that basically can identify the number of species that you have in your gut and the volume of, or the numbers of individual species. And the more diversity, the healthier you are. And there are studies that have been done with primal societies alive today, their gut microbiome, and their microbiomes have huge diversity. And those in our society, especially the ones that are sicker with chronic diseases, have very few species, and they're not abundant in very healthy species. They're abundant in a lot of pathogenic type of species. So I needed to do that, and that's what I do. And I do it with spore-based probiotics and a variety of other things. But diet also improves that. So my carnivore diet and repair of my gut and replenishing the microbiome so that I have a huge diversity of species is my second most important protocol. Now, there's another important protocol. It's that cancer is a disease of not genetic damage. Cancer is a disease of metabolic dysfunction, which I take care of with what I just described, but also mitochondrial dysfunction. Every chronic disease is a result of, in some way, a damage to the mitochondria. And the mitochondria, as most people know, are basically the energy cells, the batteries in the individual cells of our body. It's like a flashlight. If you want the flashlight to work, you just can't put the switch on and the light glows. You need to put batteries in it. And if you put batteries in it, you turn the switch on, the light will glow, and it will stay lit for a period of time, and then it dims as the batteries weaken. Eventually, the light goes out because the batteries are dead. Those batteries are similar to the mitochondria in our body cells. And some cells in our body have 200 or 300 mitochondria per cell. Some of them that are very active, like the heart tissues, have maybe 3,000 mitochondria per cell. So we have lots and lots of battery storage. But when these batteries are breaking down, they're not functioning well, and they're not doing what they have to do, they can allow a cell to become dysfunctional, sometimes cancerous, and they don't even have the power to cause the cell to self-destruct, called apoptosis, and then they just grow and spread, and that's malignancy. So to improve the health of the mitochondria and the cell membrane, there is a technology, a therapy called pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, or PEMF therapy. Now, this is actually a series of very low frequency waves that are similar to the frequency of our own cells. Now, each cell or different organ cells speak in a language of frequency. They actually communicate with one another. And those frequencies are different for the majority or each type of cell. And those frequencies can be generated and create a wave pattern of thousands of frequencies in like a harmonic wave that you can actually allow to get into your body and help heal your cells. It's almost like putting a rechargeable battery into your electric socket, and it will recharge the power of that battery. So you're literally recharging the power of your individual cells. And this technology has been around for 20 years. Lots and lots of research. If somebody were to go to PubMed and just type in PEMF therapy, hundreds and hundreds of articles will come back up from all over the world, even the United States, where that has been used in healing of bone tissue, healing of soft tissue. It's used in dermatology. It's used by orthopedic surgeons. I mean, it is a well-recognized therapy, but maybe not in absolute conventional medicine, but it's there everywhere. So when I investigated that and I saw the potential for me as a cancer patient, it just clicked in my brain that this could be a very potent adjunct to my protocols. And since I started incorporating it in my protocols, I've seen articles about PEMF therapy in some oncology magazines or journals that are talking about, hey, this may be good for cancer patients. Very interesting stuff that's just kind of coming about the medical literature. It's not going to get into the oncology clinical office for at least another 10 years, but it's there. So I incorporate that in my protocols. But there are other things that I do that are important, but not as critical with those three. Certainly I need to improve my bone metabolism. Vitamin D3 is a critical element for support of the immune system. Exercise is important. And even though I've had more pathological fractures than you can count on your fingers, I walk outside a mile a day with, actually I have had both femurs fracture, but I do walk. I do modified push-ups and squats in my house. So I know that exercise is critical. Sleep is critical. Controlling emotional stress is critical. All of this is very critical to overall health and a good immune system. And that is what I do to stay healthy and heal my body.
Yeah, it sounds like a very intelligent and thought out approach and something you've arrived at over a long time of experience and research, which is fantastic.
Can I mention one more thing? Because I think this is very important. I am not a proponent of a million supplements. I hope your company doesn't sell a million supplements.
I don't sell any supplements.
Oh, good.
I'm sponsored by a company that sells an organ supplement, but I don't.
That's
have
okay.
Any supplements myself.
So I don't consider desiccated organ supplements. I consider them food in a different fashion, which is all freeze dried. There are no chemicals added, and there is no nutrients lost. So yes, if you want to call desiccated organ supplements, I recommend them all the time, but I don't call them supplements. I call supplements vitamin C, zinc, and a host of other chemicals that have several syllables or longer. Those supplements are unnatural and are not the way our body utilizes nutrients. Do you want vitamin C? You can get it in food. The best vitamin C is from liver. It's the healthiest vitamin C you can get. Most people don't realize that, but that is heat stable, very, very bioactive. Zinc, you can get all the zinc your body needs if you eat muscle meat. You don't need extra zinc tablets. And the fact is, so many supplements that include zinc now because of COVID, they think zinc is so critical, never discuss the importance of copper. There's a copper-zinc ratio that is critical for our body. There's no problem if you eat calf's liver or other animal organs because everything is balanced in animal products. But when you get artificial supplements of one chemical or another, it can be more damaging than beneficial. I will tell you that when I started my cancer protocols, I did a lot of investigating with some integrative physicians. And one integrative physician that really impressed me for the first several months put me on supplements. I was taking about 70 to 80 supplements a day. Wow. And that's a lot. That's a lot of cancer patients are fed that kind of stuff.
It's Dave Asprey level.
Yeah. Oh my God. And you know what? Here's an interesting thing. If you look at the supplements, let's say the supplements and the active agents in the supplement were beneficial, which they're not, but let's say they were. Look at the inert ingredients in all these supplements to make the capsules firm or whatever. It's preservatives and emulsifiers and just innate inert ingredients to fill the capsule so it doesn't have voids in it. So all of that junk times 80 is getting into my gut, which is harmful for my gut microbiome, has nothing to do with the active ingredients. So I fired that guy several months later, got up off all the supplements. Once I realized the carnivore diet gave me every nutrient I need, and then if it wasn't in the carnivore diet, the animal nose to tail, as long as I was drinking mineral water with all the trace minerals in it and using Himalayan salt for all my seasoning, I was not devoid of anything. And that's the way I go.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think supplements can create a lot of noise and reactions. And I think when people are starting a carnivore diet or experimenting with different foods or different strategies, it can often be very wise to eliminate as many supplements as you can.
Absolutely.
And Dr. Al, I'm curious because I've heard a lot about combining chemotherapy with fasting. Dr. Dom D'Agostino has talked extensively about ketogenic diets or fasting mimicking diets combined with chemotherapy for cancer. Is fasting something you looked into at all, or something you incorporate in any form?
Yes. So I do intermittent fasting, and that's not the fasting that you're talking about, I know. But I do that generally every day. But the ketosis is critical, in my opinion, all the research that I have read. And ketosis is critical because not only that it starves the cancer cells of glucose, but cancer cells know how to eat other stuff. So that's not going to solve the problem. But more importantly, the ketones that the liver produces when you're in ketosis, the ketones are really a critical element. They reduce free radical. They're clean burning fuel. They get into the brain. They're used by the brain. They're used by the heart. They're used by muscle tissue. They literally reduce free radicals in the body. They enhance the production of our natural antioxidants, which is critical for cancer. So the research I've read with ketosis and the generation of ketone bodies, is a very important thing. And I do what I do, and I am in ketosis. So I am in ketosis. I believe in what's called metabolic flexibility. I am in ketosis, and I know that because I use a breath ketone meter that is very efficient to let me know where I am. And I stay in ketosis generally 6 days a week based on what I eat. And of course, to do that, you need to have high fat, medium protein, and 0 to extremely low carbs. I know that the ketones are a critical part for a healthy diet, especially for cancer patients. And I know that I can stay in ketosis based on the fat and protein ratios that I'm eating. And then after 7 days, the seventh day of the week, I will go ahead and cycle out of ketosis with eating carbs. And my carbs are made up of raw honey, several fruits, and that will take me to maybe the 100, 150 grams of carbs that day. And I know I'm out of ketosis, and I give my body the spike in insulin, and it goes back into its mode of burning the fuel that's available, which now is carbohydrates. And then the next day, I go right back into ketosis without any problems, no cravings. Basically, I'm fat adapted anyhow, so it's not a problem. And then I'll do that for another 5+ days, and then cycle in and out of that. I think that metabolic flexibility, that process of cycling in and out, is the healthier way to go, because that's really most likely the way our primal ancestors metabolize their food. They didn't eat breakfast, lunch, dinner, and 2 snacks, as you know. So they couldn't find food all the time. And when they found food, the food that sustained them the longest were the animal products and the fat, because those products could be stored. And when they were stored, they could be stored as fat if necessary, and their bodies would break down other fat. And if they had carbohydrates, they ate those carbohydrates, and they stored that as fat. And the times that they couldn't eat and fasted for days, maybe even weeks or longer, they could sustain themselves with their own natural fat cells. So I'm trying to mimic that, and I do believe that you're right. Fasting and fasting mimicking diet and actual 2, 3, 4 day fasting is a very appropriate way to go. I don't do 3 or 4 day fasting. I did 2-day fast a while back, but I am very, very critically involved with making sure I'm in ketosis.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think fasting can also come with a lot of downsides and risks. So you need to be very careful with the approach, especially if you're someone who's older and is very intent on holding on to muscle mass and bone mass. It can be prudent to avoid long periods of fasting. And what does kind of a day of eating look like for you now, Dr. Al? What foods do you incorporate? How much do you eat?
I eat when I'm hungry, and I drink when I'm thirsty. And everything I drink is today is mineral types of water. I used to think, and it wasn't so long before I was thinking this way, I thought that the best water is filtered water. And I was involved with buying filtered water, putting filters on my sink, everything that I could remove from tap water would be healthy. But all I was doing was creating dead water. That's not the water our ancestors got to drink when they needed electrolytes. The water that is spring water is basically the rain falls on, and the rain goes through the dirt and the rocks, and it gets into the aquifers and eventually pours into springs. And we drink that as natural water, and loaded with trace minerals, electrolytes, everything else we need is in the water. So as often as I am thirsty, but I only drink that water. I don't drink any water that is like reverse osmosis, that is then added back with electrolytes. That's very unnatural as far as I'm concerned. So I'm only drinking, my favorite waters would be Evian, Fiji, and the most potent water with electrolytes in my that I've researched is Gerolsteiner from Germany. So I drink that. So I do some stuff that a lot of people in the carnivore world would not like. So I drink coffee. I love coffee. I get it. Coffee may not be the best for some people. I love coffee. So I drink my coffee. I drink, obviously, organic coffee. I grind my beans. I drink maybe 16 ounces or so of coffee a day. I put some ghee and some MCT oil in my coffee. I use a stick blender, blend my coffee, and I drink that throughout the day in the morning. And then by the time I'm hungry, it's either 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, maybe even 4 o'clock. I may have 1 or 2 meals, depending if I'm hungry. Generally, what I will do at that meal is I like to do ground beef, and I have a variety of ground beef that I get from a farm in Florida that actually raises grass-fed, grass-finished Wagyu beef, which is really good. Sometimes with a Instant Pot, I make some short ribs, sometimes ossobuco, some of these very gelatinous foods. I will eat that. I will have shrimp. I love shrimp. I use liver pate in a couple of from a couple of companies that are pretty healthy organic pates. I'll eat chicken liver, chicken wings. For the most part, though, it's the red meat, lamb and beef, and I'll eat in a variety of ways. And that's really it. I might have an apple. I may not have an apple. If I'm having any fruit or anything, I keep my carbs below 10 grams or 15 grams of carbs that day. I still stay in ketosis. And if I'm having some honey, then I might not have anything else other than honey, because about a tablespoon of honey has about 17 grams of carbs. And then I do pretty well with that.
Yeah, sounds like an excellent approach. I'm a big fan of incorporating some other foods besides just 100% animal products. If you can tolerate them and they make you feel good, I think that's excellent. And what are you working on now, Dr. Al, and excited about? And where can people find out more about you?
Absolutely. So I'm at drdanenberg.com, drdanenberg.com. I have put together a little paper that I thought was pretty interesting, and it got a lot of good attention from the general public that I sent it to. And that was my 5 important tools for a robust immune system. It's kind of 5 methods that an individual can test on themselves to see how robust that immune system is. And that's an important factor to me, because all the research I've read that is documented in PubMed peer-reviewed journals all over the world shows that if you have a robust immune system, you have significantly less risk for any chronic diseases, including cancer. And so this is an important thing. And what I incorporate is understanding that you have to have a mouth. If you have any gum tissues that bleed, you have a compromised immune system. We can get into that, but generally, unless you have bad dentistry in your mouth, generally, you cannot have disease unless you start with dysbiosis in the gut. Dysbiosis in the gut damages the microbiome, obviously in the gut, damages the epithelial layer, and the immune system is compromised. That creates chronic systemic inflammation, changes the bacteria in the mouth to become pathogenic, and you can develop inflammation. And that inflammation is a sign to you that something is wrong in your immune system. So I show how you can do certain little, use little soft silicone picks that are like toothpicks to clean between the teeth. But if they stimulate any bleeding whatsoever anywhere in your mouth, you need to see a good biological dentist, because that is a biomarker of a depressed immune system and damage to the gut. Being in ketosis is critical. So using a breath ketone meter is the best way to go, unless you like to stick your finger 1,000,000 times. And I don't do that because, again, I'm a wuss. I don't like that. Glycemic variability is very important. And glycemic variability is basically the way your insulin is produced so that it takes glucose out of the bloodstream quickly and utilizes it as fuel or as glycogen or stores it as fat. And if it's not doing that effectively, you can become pre-diabetic, diabetic, and all kinds of terrible things. And all that leads to many, many metabolic diseases. So that variability in your glycemic or glucose is critical. And the standard deviation of that variability has been shown to correlate very highly with a healthy immune system and reduced risk. So if you have a high standard deviation of the glycemic variability, you have a very high risk level for chronic disease and a very low or dysfunctional immune system. Alpha diversity is something I mentioned. And there are some stool tests, a unique stool test that is monitored by a company called Cosmos ID, and the stool test is produced by microbiome labs called Biome FX, that will actually identify your alpha diversity. And let me just tell you, when I did that stool test, and all of these are important to me because I do them and make sure that I have good immune system health. When I did that test, my alpha diversity was in the 98th percentile. That means 98% of other healthy people have less diversity than I. And theoretically, I should have a terrible, dysfunctional immune system, and I don't. And then the other thing is your blood level of vitamin D. So the vitamin D blood test, 25 hydroxyvitamin D, should be in the area of 40 to 60 nanograms per milliliter. And ideally, the closer to 60 would be the healthier, especially if you want a robust immune system.
Yeah, that's great.
So I do that. I work on that. And I do some coaching. I do a lot of coaching all around, one-on-one coaching about metabolic flexibility. And that's where we are.
That's excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story today, Dr. Al. And I'm sure folks will want to find out much more about you. So I'll have links to your website and all your work in the show notes and at carnivorecast.com. And hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.
Thanks for the opportunity. It's been fun.
If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting the Carnivore Cast on Patreon. By becoming a patron, you'll help us reach more people and continue to create content on carnivore. There are also exclusive perks available, such as private Q&As, consultations with me, and more. Become a supporter at patreon.com/carnivorecast. Check the episode description for the link. Thank you, and I'll see you there. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Carnivore Cast. If you enjoyed this episode, please review on iTunes. It really helps us out. And share it with a friend. What questions would you like answered, or who would you like to hear from in the carnivore research community? You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at CarnivoreCast, or go to carnivorecast.com. You can also email me at info@carnivorecast.com. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep it carnivore.